So back to our Onen. At that very moment, when he feels or she feels so bereft, they must realize that life is plural. That much as they feel all alone, they have to remember that they are not solitary individuals. They have to remember that life is plural. While the Onanim are the first to suspend their life's activities because of the encounter with death, all the others who are involved in one way or another, either with the preparation of the body for burial, the Chevra Kadisha, or with any other aspect of the funeral, are also expected, as we've seen, to defer all their activities in order to attend the deceased. In fact, as you see from reading, traditionally, when a procession of the dead body passes by, people must stop whatever it is they're doing and stand in a show of respect. That concept of death as making claims upon the living, of course, is a reminder that death is so much of concern to all of society. The claims of the dead cannot be, may not be, postponed, although some kinds of brief allowances are made when close relatives are very far away and need time to arrive for the funeral. So there is another thing. The aspect of being an Onen is so fraught with this pulling between the centrifugal and the centripetal, with being alone and being part of the group. It is so difficult to maintain this betwixt and between that in the Jewish tradition, the response has to be to bring about the funeral as quickly as possible. The Onen is not caught up then just in thoughts about the loved one lost or in preparations for the funeral. They are also caught, at least temporarily, in the suffocating embrace of death, as if in recognition of this, although they are prohibited from full-fledged mourning, Onanim are enjoined, prevented by the tradition from engaging in even the most symbolic activity of life's joys. So, in the traditional world, that meant things like eating meat or drinking wine, which in Jewish tradition were seen as the epitome of the pleasures of the flesh. And of course, the greatest pleasure of the flesh, lovemaking, was also prohibited, because all of those are challenges to the death. And as we've seen in our readings of Hertz and of the other anthropologists, Malinowski, that there is this primitive belief that the dead person is jealous of those who remain alive. And the Onen is, in that sense, the most vulnerable. The Onen, therefore, is enjoined from doing anything that might elicit these presumed, imagined, negative feelings of the dead. But it isn't expressed in that way. It's expressed simply in the traditional rules and rituals that say that the Onen may not eat meat, may not drink wine, may not engage in lovemaking, is relieved of all other religious obligations, everything from praying to studying the sacred scriptures. All of that is suspended. Both the pleasures of the flesh and all other concerns, and all that he or she must think about and do and deal with is preparing for the funeral. And of course, the funeral, as we know, is that occasion when everyone joins the Onanim. And it is at the funeral that the transitional period ends, and with the funeral, as we will see in our next lecture, it is mourning that begins. But before the funeral takes place, we want to switch for a moment and look at what is actually in the meantime, during this time that the Onen is the Onen, what is happening to the corpse? What transition is it going through? What preparation is it going through? If the Onen is preparing for the funeral, how is the deceased being prepared for the funeral? And that will lead us to considering the next chapter, the chapter on Tahara, or purification, in our next lecture.